Welcome to the Better Workday Podcast with your host, Niamh Moynihan. We've all been there. Mass layoffs while the workload stays the same, or even worse, increases. Half the team on vacation at the same time. Senior leaders who won't say no. Whatever the reason, the end result is the same. Having to work while understaffed. Niamh, what can we do during these times to ensure that we're getting the work done that we can, while not burning ourselves out in the process?
Hello, and welcome back to the Better Workday Podcast. If you are tuning in for the first time, I am Niamh Moynihan, and I am delighted to have you here. If you've been listening for a while, it's great to have you on this journey to a better workday, and I hope you're doing well. I want to start with a quick podcast update. A few weeks ago, I was preparing to upload episode 17 on procrastination when I ran into technical issues. Okay, what really happened is that I left a cable behind when delivering a talk, which meant I couldn't access the files I needed. Now, I have since bought 2 of this type of cable, so one never leaves the office. But this hiccup meant I missed a week of the podcast, which got me thinking. I decided to change the frequency to every 2 weeks, so I have less work to do over the summer. And I might change it back to weekly in September. We will see how things go. This is a practical example of reducing workload by changing the scope or frequency of a piece of work, which ties nicely into what I'm talking about today. Because today I want to discuss what you can do if your team is understaffed. In simple terms, this is when your team doesn't have enough people to do all the work needed in the required time. And there are many reasons why teams can be understaffed. It could be a combination of high turnover and long hiring cycles. It could be due to employees being absent because of illness or other reasons. There might be hiring freezes, or maybe a rapid growth in the demand for the work your team does. Regardless of the reasons, being understaffed impacts the team's existing members. Some people might start to skip or work through their breaks. The time for social conversations, training and other development opportunities gets squeezed out. Hidden overtime increases when team members begin to regularly log into work in the evenings and weekends. Stress levels increase and the well-being of your team begins to decline. The risk of absence and turnover due to work-related stress increases, creating a vicious cycle. If your team is in this situation, I hope you or someone else can put a plan in place to resolve it. What I want to do today is talk about what you can do on a day-to-day basis to manage the workload so that you can reduce any unnecessary stress in the meantime. So let's get into it. First, you must be honest with your team about the staffing problem. And this starts at an individual level. If you work through your lunch break in the evenings or weekends and deliver all your work on time, you can't always assume that other people know you're doing all that extra work. All people see are the results being delivered. And the same goes for the members of your team. This topic comes up repeatedly in my surveys. People tell me that they regularly work more than 40 hours a week and typically meet their commitments. What I'm hearing is that the work still gets done, but at the expense of well-being and work-life balance. Quick side note here, the 3rd Better Workday Survey is currently underway. I run this every 2 years to understand the challenges that people are facing in work. And I would love if you could help me out by completing the survey. I'll put the link in the show notes and I plan to share the results in September, so watch this space. Okay, back to it. If your team is understaffed and you are working hidden overtime, it's likely other team members are too. I highly recommend you conduct an audit and ask the entire team to write down what they are working on outside of the standard working hours and then discuss it as a group. In this conversation, take a look at the projects or deliverables the team is working on. Are there deadlines being pushed out or missed? You can talk about how people are balancing work with everything else in life. Are people taking their annual leave? Are they skipping their breaks? Are they slow to take time for training or hesitant to say yes to new requests for help or support? This conversation isn't always easy, but it will help you get a clear understanding of the size of the problem so that you can do something about it. But it's more important than that. When a team is struggling with workload, it's essential they feel seen and heard. It's not always about having the magic solution. My sister has a great phrase, which is to have a sit and bitch. I love this because sometimes you just need to let it all out. A problem shared is a problem halved, especially when the team has each other's back in times like this. I suggest following the example from The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Give the team the space in the conversation to be in the gap. Talk about the problems, the lack of resources and everything else you don't have, and set a time limit on this. When the time is up, ask the group to try to move into the gain, which is focusing on everything you do have and all the things you are currently doing well. And from there, make small plans to try new things over the next couple of weeks. This should be a repeating conversation every few weeks while the team is understaffed, so you can monitor what's driving unplanned overtime, and it should give people a space to vent and share their frustrations while also coming up with new ways to support each other and manage their workload. Now, if you haven't already done so, the first change to make is to prioritise breaks and rests during the working week. Because if you and your team are working above and beyond what's normally expected, you have to be rested. You have to take your breaks. This helps combat fatigue, prevent burnout, and sustain your ability and interest in the job to be done. My recommendation is to go old school and have a shared lunch break where everyone takes their breaks at the same time to make sure everyone takes it. And I don't just mean your lunch break, I also mean your morning coffee break and an afternoon break. Get regimental about them. If you have a heavy workload, then you have to look after yourself. Building on that, everyone on the team needs to take their annual leave so they can fully disconnect from work. Because the work isn't going to stop coming. There will never be a suitable time to take time off in an understaffed team, so you just have to do it anyway. And the final point in this area is to agree on times for no work no matter what. For example, this could be after 9 p.m, before 7 a.m, or on a Sunday. And I really wish I didn't have to make this suggestion, but this is a reality for many teams, and we have to work with reality. Agree as a team what your upper boundaries are for working hours. Respect it among the team and commit to having each other's back during the workday to get the work done without anyone on the team feeling like they're logged in 24/7. The next thing you can do to reduce unnecessary overtime is prioritising the work. And this sounds simple, I know, but it is not always easy because everything can seem a priority. And this is why it's crucial for you to get all of the work out on the table. The RACI is a great tool to help you do this. This is used a lot in project management. You list all the work in one column, and then across the top you have a list of everybody on the team. For each task you mark who's responsible for doing it, who's ultimately accountable for the work, who gets consulted and who gets informed. Everything has to go on this, not just the regular tasks. I also want all the meetings to go on it, the recurring meetings, any one-off meetings coming up in the next month that you're aware of, administration tasks, and any relationships that you need to manage. All of the work has to go into this list. And that's going to be big, long and messy. But unless you get all the work on the table, there's no way that you can manage it. When you see it all together and you can see who's doing what, this is where you will find the opportunities for change. There may be duplication of effort or time spent in areas that aren't needed. And now it's time to start prioritising. I recommend using a few different factors. I call it the priority puzzle, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. You're going to be looking at the work and what the impact is, how many people are going to be impacted by it, whether it's revenue generating or not, and how well it aligns with company goals. What's the risk of not doing the work, and what's the reward if you do? If you're a manager, your job here is to ensure that your team is doing the most valuable work. Also, if part of your work is to support other teams, you need to ensure you are supporting them in the way that's needed, without over-delivering at the expense of your team's well-being. Instead of trying to reshuffle things in order of priority, for example, priority 1, 2, 3, down to 753, you can now start looking at what you can delete or what's not going to be done. And there's a lovely phrase which is perfect to use at the midpoint of the year, and that phrase is, not this year. I believe I heard this on a Brendan Burchard podcast and thought it was so powerful. Not this year. Take a look at everything that's going on and decide what is not going to be done in 2024. You're not taking it off the table forever, but you will definitely not do it in the next 6 months. And then you can start to delegate. Now, this could mean delegating to external support if possible, or delegating the work better among your team so that people are using their skills and abilities in the best way. And while you're looking at delegation, you must also delegate the ability to make decisions. Of course, I know this depends on the decision to be made, but there is no point in asking other people to do the work if every time a decision needs to be made, they need to come back to you. That's going to create bottlenecks. So with every piece of delegation, you also want to empower people to make the decisions necessary to move things forward without delay. And that really makes a difference. And you could also ask if there are people in other areas with capacity willing to help. You will be amazed how often I ask people in workshops if they've ever had a quiet day or quiet week, and some of them will raise their hands. And then I ask, would you help someone out if they were stuck? Everybody says yes. If you need help and I'm not busy, then I'll help. But the thing is, we don't ask for help enough, and people on other teams aren't going to constantly update you on how much free time they have in a day or week, just in case you need to know. So instead, you need to foster a culture of offering to help where possible. And to help with this, here are a few things you can do. First, the other team needs to know that you are understaffed. Don't assume they know. And also, secondly, they need to know what type of help you need. Quite simply, meet with the other teams and let them know you're struggling, that the team are working extra hours. Explain what you're working on and the kind of help that would be helpful even for a few days. There might be people who were on your team in the past and they could help out. There could be people who are interested in learning about your area and they want to help, even if it's only doing research and basic tasks. It all makes a difference. And if you think I'm being too optimistic, let me remind you that this comes down to your company's culture. I know plenty of people, teams and companies that can and do this. Another way to improve workload management is to invest in training. I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive when everyone's up to 90 trying to get their work done, but now is the time to ensure that people can do their jobs as best they can. This could mean leveraging automation and AI to take care of things that tech can take care of. Upskilling the team so they feel confident in using technology to support their workday can make a massive difference. And it could also be about improving the way you work. It's tempting when we're busy to put our heads down and to keep on going, but taking some time out to improve your work individually and as a team will help everything run more smoothly. It could mean looking at process improvement to eliminate waste and additional steps. It could be improving how you communicate and collaborate together. It could be leveraging existing systems better. There are so many ways you can do this. But you won't be able to make those changes in 15 minutes between one meeting and the next, by the way. I would go all in and say that if your team is understaffed, take a whole day as a team and get out of the workspace. Learn new ways to manage your workload and decide as a group what you will do and how you will support each other. And maybe doing that once a quarter until things have improved is a good way to do it. Because if you don't get a chance to step back from work and look at how you can make those improvements, you will always be on the back foot. My final thought on this topic is honestly to be kind to yourself and your team. If you're understaffed, it's going to affect your motivation and your morale. You are going to get stressed. We can't pretend it's an easy time, okay? But if you can look after each other, it is more manageable. And this is so important. Make a little bit of time for social conversations and fun. Like I always say, the work will always be there, but work is better when you work together. Okay, that's it from me for today. I hope you found this episode helpful. And until next time, stay well and have a better workday.
Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. The Better Workday podcast is about helping you have a better workday. So we'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. You can find our social media details as well as any references from this episode in the show notes.